Did you know that by age 70, your body's nitric oxide production can drop as much as 70%? Well, in today's episode, we're going to find out how that works and a lot more with my guest, Dr. Luke Bucci, Chief Scientific Officer at Juvenon Supplements. We dive into the science behind declining energy, slower metabolism, reduced blood flow, and aging mitochondria for my over 40 audience, and more importantly, what you can do about it. So if you're interested, stay tuned. And also, just a quick reminder before we dive in, this show is for educational purposes only. Check out the full medical disclaimer in the show notes before making any lifestyle changes. Dr. Luke, I just want to thank you for coming on my show. Real excited to hear more about your company, Juvenon, which I've used products of yours in the past. But today we wanted to talk about a slew of things stemming from metabolism, cellular energy, anything you can talk to us about that can help the over 40 struggling male and female out there. We're all in the same boat. But before we get into it, my audience always kind of wants to know how you got into the field you're doing, a little bit of history, and then we'll do the fun stuff. So I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you very much for having me on here. I think everybody's going to have a good, fun time, because if I don't have a good time, then it's not worth doing, right? But I really want to get info out to people so you can understand more about how your body works, as well as how you can help your body work better. And that's where supplements come into. I would have a very traditional standard medical background. My dad was a pathologist, so I kind of grew up seeing dead people, literally. and that changed my life forever, because you see a black lung from a smoker and you don't smoke anymore. You see a guy that died from a heart attack who was a big fat slob, sorry, but he was. And I asked him, Daddy, why did he die? And he says, he ate like a pig. So looking at that heart,
Not doing that either,
and seeing him break scalpels on his calcified coronary artery to find out where the plug was for cause of death, this is way back. That, you don't forget that. And that changes how you eat forever. I think that if everybody had those experiences, we'd all be healthier. But we don't have those experiences, so that's why we're talking.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Everyone should have had a little taste of that in science class, maybe in high school, but scare them straight.
Yep, it works well, but it's just not how our educational system works. That's another story for another time. But I got into supplements. It just sort of dropped in my lap. I was in grad school. I did not want to go the usual. I did postdocs, and it was time to get a job or get an appointment somewhere. But that meant my wife had a better job than I could, so we couldn't move. So I thought, well, all of a sudden this job just popped up at Biotics Research, and they're still going. They deal with healthcare professionals mostly, although people can buy their stuff now. And just jumped with both feet into the supplement world. My dad said, you're crazy. What are you doing with all those crazy people? He says, well, I am crazy, yes, but you have to eat, and this is a way of getting the right nutrients into you. So it kind of makes sense, and I'll kind of pull them up by their bootstraps. And it's just been a blast. I changed my life entirely, and over 40 there are issues, and we're going to see what we can do to help that here in this talk. And so I've lived it. I've tried out all kinds of supplements. I have some real strong opinions. I like some things very much, and I hate the way things get commercialized, and then they get thrown away because, oh, they're old. That's old, that doesn't work. It's like, oh, no, you're wrong. And there's too many fads for me. And I think what you're doing is just grounded in the right way to do things. I mean, I did get to recruited and work for Leader Nutrition, and they turned into Shift Nutrition. So really dealt with the bodybuilding thing. And we decided to get rid of that because it was crazy and go into just the big mass market supplements, which is just more than multivitamins. So we got into joint care and omega-3s, and that got me into krill oil. So I have all this history and have bounced around since with the supply side companies where we were selling the raw materials, also with First Endurance, which is ultra endurance athletic supplements, and kind of everything in between. So with Juvenon, I'm right where I should be for people over 40.
Nice. Beautiful. Well, let's get into some of this stuff. I think before we hit record, we wanted to just start with metabolism, cellular energy. I just know I'm 45 now, and I do all the right things, different exercises, throwing some high intensity. I'm on creatine, and that helps, but it is always a constant fight for just energy. And coffee, it's something coffee can't fix and shouldn't because of all the problems with caffeine. But what's your take on that? How should the over 40 crowd start looking at this differently, and how do we fix it, hopefully?
Well, with exercise nutrition, it really is a lot about caffeine on the science side as well as practical use. And I do use caffeine as coffee or tea because of their polyphenols, which I think are super important too, that they're good for longevity. But let's get back to really trying to make ourselves exercise better after 40. I have learned through Juvenon, I kind of knew this, but it really cemented it when I looked into the science. And it's really a lot about the nitric oxide, which is blood flow. Your body controls where your blood goes, how much goes where and when, instantly, everywhere, all the time, and especially exercise. That's why your heart beats faster and your muscles get full of blood, because of nitric oxide telling your blood vessels what to do, where the blood goes. Don't send it there. Shut that down a bit. Open these up. That nitric oxide production, I did not really realize this until I got to Juvenon, because we have products that work for blood flow. And I thought, yeah, blood flow, yeah, all people are getting cold hands and feet and stuff. And I'm getting there myself, so I better, bone up on it. I did not realize that you look at all the things that go downhill with aging, and you see all these curves going down, this and that and this and that. But the one that impressed me the most, or the worst, was nitric oxide production. And you don't hear about it. So
Yeah.
I don't want to show you curves in a chart and stuff, but I have to dumb it down for me so I can understand it. So hopefully everybody gets the message. But the message is, if you're healthy, do everything right, like you do, by age 40, you're already starting to drop your nitric oxide production, the whole body. You're dropping it about 20%. And it starts to go down from there. By the time you're 70, you're down around 30% left. So you're 80% when you're up there at 40, but this is a steady downward decline. And that's the best situation if you don't do anything about it. Now, what about unhealthy people? People that are overweight, that don't exercise, that smoke, that eat junk. They're unhealthy. There's an unhealthy curve too. And at 40, you're already at 50%. It means half your nitric oxide production is not there, which means you're very sluggish with moving your blood around where it's supposed to be. Your blood's still going 90 miles, or was it 40 miles an hour through your arteries, but it's just not getting where it's supposed to be. When you're 70, and here's the rub, if you're 70, unhealthy, hate to say that, you're down below 10% or worse. I mean, you have very, very sluggish nitric oxide. So that's an important thing. And eating a plant food diet is, I think, the number one thing to do. A lot of green leafy vegetable type things and beets, et cetera, et cetera. You got to watch out for those, because they do have a lot of nitrites and nitrates. And nitrites, as my experience in MD Anderson Cancer Hospital in grad school showed me, that you don't want to have too much carcinogenics. But the polyphenols in the fruits and vegetables counteract that a lot. So it is the best way to help your nitric oxide out. And of course, there are supplements that do that too.
Quick, Dr. Luke, with nitric oxide in general in the supplement world, from everything I've heard and talked to other people, it is a real hard supplement to take and for the body to use it. Or if it does create, in my mind, I'm thinking beetroot extract, L-citrulline, L-arginine, all those create the nitric oxide, but it's gone in seconds. It's not something that we can get a steady supply of. So is it something that we've gotten better at this, or we just have to dose it all day long to be able to get these benefits?
Oh, man, that's a super
worth the money.
That's a super good question and observation, actually, because nitric oxide, nature is smart. It makes nitric oxide to control your blood flow minutely, anywhere, anytime. It can ramp it up, it can ramp it down. And the beauty of nitric oxide is that as soon as the body's enzyme called eNOS, skip that, when it makes the nitric oxide, it is a free radical, it is unstable, and it will blow up in about 2 seconds. So it just moves enough to get to the muscles around your blood vessels, and that's what triggers them to relax. And when it relaxes, the little arteries open up, and you get blood flow. So your muscles get blood, other parts of your anatomy get blood, et cetera, your brain. And that's the beauty of it. There's no off switch. It's just, if you need it on, it turns on, and if you want to keep it on, it keeps on. So you have nerve stimulation to tell your blood vessels and nitric oxide to keep doing it. There's always enough arginine in the bloodstream that's the precursor that the enzyme makes that pops off part of it, adds an oxygen, and poof, you have nitric oxide. So that's what's going on, and you always have enough arginine. But the enzyme is stuck on the side of your arteries, little arteries, and there's arginine bound to silicate that is actually attracted to sticking on the blood vessel walls. So it kind of spoons feeds your nitric oxide synthase enzyme to make nitric oxide a little better on demand. And then there's the other polyphenols help that because they protect the enzyme from nitric oxide itself, which is a free radical. Okay, what's nitric oxide? It's nitrogen and oxygen, NO. So that's why we say it's NO. So just say no to no, right? No, say yes to no. But it's like O2. We breathe oxygen and we tear it apart, and it's a double free radical. We don't realize that, which is why it's toxic if you have too much oxygen. That's why you don't breathe 100% oxygen all day. That'll tear you up. And nitric oxide is the same way. But unlike oxygen, which is pretty stable, well, very stable comparatively, and nitric oxide blows up and disappears. And it's made in very tiny amounts, and that's crucial. So that's what really attracted my attention, that, oh, wait a minute, that's probably kind of the basis of what you want to do. And what's also nice is that this nitrogen silicate and these polyphenols also have human studies on exercise performance being improved at pretty much any age. And the few that are over 40 look good. You do see more blood flow. You do see widening of the arterioles so that you get more pump, if you will, depending upon what you're exercising. So in other words, like you're turning back the clock. So you're not, if you're at 40, you're back to 20, or if you're at 60, you're back to 40 on the healthy curve. So that's what you're doing. You're getting yourself back to the healthy curve by grading your nitric oxide production. And supplements can do that. And the science, I think, is pretty darn good.
Yeah, that's great. In your example, let's not worry about the out of shape people. Let's assume everyone's on my podcast and we're doing the right things. And you get to that in shape 70-year-old or over 70-year-old where, you were just from nature and aging, you're down to 10, 20% production. The dosing on taking nitric oxide supplements, do they have to take more, or it's still the same for everybody? You can't overdose that.
That's super important because you obviously can't be popping pills all day long and all night long. So that's the beauty of the arginine silicate form, is that it delivers the arginine right to the enzyme. It kind of sticks right there, so it clusters around the enzyme. It's serendipity that works that way, but the human studies really show that it starts working in 15 to 30 minutes, where you actually can see increased blood flow, and it lasts for 6 to 8 hours. So there you go. You can take it once in the morning and once in the evening if you want to do 24/7 coverage. So, and that's why the arginine and citrulline massive doses don't work well, because they are, the body's saying, wait a minute, that's too much arginine, and citrulline's a byproduct we're trying to get rid of. So you have to take, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10 grams at a dose, and you get a blast of nitric oxide, but then 2 or 3 hours later, you're done. So that's the beauty of this arginine silicate, and there is a patent on that and all that kind of jazz. So it seems to work out in the real world, and it makes it a nice supplement because you don't have to take gobs of something, and it's, of course, safe as everything because it's a lower dose. And the polyphenols add to that, and that's why a plant-based diet is important. You still need lots of protein and can have all the animal protein you want, if so, which is just fine, as long as you have a lot of the polyphenols that are in plant foods.
Yeah, I agree. And then I like encompassing, doing a little bit of fasting, or intermittent fasting is kind of the better selling point to the over 40 crowd. You don't have to get crazy if you don't want to, but just stop snacking, let your body digest everything, clear out, go from there. So
I've tried that, and I totally agree. It's just hard for me to do because I have to keep my brain going for my job. And the brain's, hungry, mad for glucose. So you got to be careful. Yeah, and then after doing carbo loading and being way over 40 years now, it's really fun to see your body respond to these things. What you're doing is, I think, a good way to go. I've tried with the intermittent fasting, and that does work as long as you don't do it too long and you'll start losing muscle mass, which you've figured that part out, and your listeners really need to follow what you're telling them. I think that's a good way to go, because keeping things constantly on for the body's going to, okay, we don't want to do this 24/7, stop. Your body's unruly. It tries not to change. That's homeostasis. So no, we want to do what we want to do. We're not going to do what you want to do. So it works for a while. And I think your timing is the right way to do it. So then you can convince your body that, okay, we're going to mess with you, so you'll do what we want you to do and give us the results you want, like burn fat and
Yeah.
keep your muscle mass and keep up your exercise performance. And I think those are the real crucial things about the non-supplement part of diet. Since I'm a supplement expert, I kind of forget about the macro diets. And you're
Yeah.
right, that periodic timing of eating is super important too.
Yeah. Just in general, for everybody, I always tell a little bit of stress is good. You have to stress the body to get a response back. You can't overload it with food. You can't overload it with workouts. You can't overload it with water, but any theories and modalities that you try out, any supplements, everything has to be taken in moderation, some breaks included. And then a lot of fine tuning. So a lot of the stuff I tell my audience, I tell them, you need to find what works for you because, ancestrally, everyone's different. There's going to be little things that happen to you. So just, it's a journey. So that's kind of what I promote on my show. But Dr. Luke, what else we got for if we want to stay on with energy, metabolism, anything else you're excited about talking about?
Well, yeah, and cell energy, and it's all about the mitochondria. It's not like we can stick our tail into a socket and get energized. We don't have that system. We have little mitochondria, and I think people need to understand more about mitochondria. So there's one little quick story I love to tell. I was in grad school, and as a grad student, they make you go to the seminars when some big muckety-muck scientist rolls into town and messes around with the different department or whatever. And they go, okay, so he's going to give a seminar about how great and good he or she is. So I went to this one, and it was all about mitochondria. And I go, yeah, powerhouse of the cell. Yeah, so what? I was blown away. I mean, he showed this is back in the early 80s. So this is before we have all this tech now, but he actually was the first one to show mitochondria in a live cell. And so you could see them, some kind of phase contrast microscopy. And it was a movie because we didn't have videos, we had movies. So it was a little movie, home movie, through a microscope about here's the cell. And then you see his mitochondria just go, they were zipping. He had to slow down so you could see them zipping around. They were moving like crazy. And so they're not, you see all those pictures of cells in the textbook and the mitochondria stuck in this cytoplasm in them, and it looks like it's stuck. No, they're all over the place. In fact, when your cell needs energy, like a muscle cell, they zoom over to where the muscle needs the energy, which is the sarcolemma and all that kind of blah, blah, blah. In other words, your mitochondria go where your cell needs energy. If you're making more DNA, it goes into the nucleus. It's just incredible how important mitochondria are. And number two about mitochondria is they are a mutated archaic bacteria of some kind, even a pre-bacteria bacteria. And they kind of commingled with plant-like fungi things that turned out to be us eventually. So we hijacked them or they hijacked us. It doesn't matter. It's symbiotic. So they have a different metabolism. They act differently and they need different nutritional demands, really. So what gives you that fuel? Okay, food. Yeah, protein, fats, carbs, they all become energy. What's that energy? It's really just proton, H plus, hydrogen atoms, and a little bit of fat that gets into the mitochondria as an acetyl group. But anyway, what do your mitochondria take in is food broken down completely to these tiny molecules, acetate and then hydrogen ions, which is really tearing everything up. So that's what your cell has to do that digestion starts. And that's what the mitochondria do. They take that acetate group and they take the hydrogen ions and they take oxygen that you breathe in and boom, they make energy out of that. So that's kind of a real mountaintop kind of explanation, but it works and it's a symbiotic way. So we have to feed the mitochondria, and anything that will help you break down all your food and all the chemicals that the foods turn into, that's super important too.
Yeah. I know in my world, besides feeding your mitochondria, you have to stimulate your mitochondria. Working out helps stimulate it, putting that stress. One of the biggest things I noticed over 40 is you start just from your work-life balance, you're moving less. It's just a natural state that your body starts getting rid of some of this mitochondria. You don't need that high mitochondrial count again. So if you start stressing it with working out, doing cardio, you start building that back up, which thus makes the energy systems work more efficiently. One of the biggest things I discovered was doing at least one high intensity session a week, 10 to 15 minutes all out, getting that epoch where your body needs to just, oxygenate everything again. It's just a real big stimulation to bump up that count. So you feed it, you stimulate it, as far as you're the expert in supplements, what can we do to help facilitate all this process so we can get that highest count and most efficient mitochondria?
Okay, it's really, I think, three general things. One is coenzyme Q10, which is really the final step in generating energy in mitochondria. And again, there's lots of studies. There's ubiquinol, which is, I think, a little bit better absorbed and utilized form of coenzyme Q. That's critical. And I've been taking that since 1985 every day, and I still think I'm in better shape than I should be, and I'm trying to keep it that way. And I think that's one of the reasons why. Another one is the whole carnitine system. Acetyl L-carnitine is how fats get into the mitochondria to generate energy, and that is a very complicated system. So carnitine is always a good thing, which explains why a high red meat diet is what a lot of athletes, especially bodybuilders and strength athletes, have gravitated to because it works. You don't see too many strict vegan bodybuilders. There are some, yes, but they have to get a lot of extra protein and things, and have to have their body make carnitine, which if you're stressing your body a lot, you need a little more than you can make yourself. And that's where meat comes in, or supplements, of course. So anything like acetyl L-carnitine, which is the actual form that gets into the cells and into the mitochondria to burn energy, that's plenty good stuff too. And then antioxidants in general after that. But go ahead.
Yeah, one comment on that. I just know from L-carnitine, exactly what you said. It's in the cell. It helps facilitate the process of pulling fat in for the mitochondria to burn. That whole system is only when you're in, that aerobic zone. If you're in the anaerobic zone, it's not doing much, right? So you have to be doing stuff for cardiovascular for 40 minutes plus to really get the benefit of having that extra L-carnitine. That's at least what I found, when I was doing more cardio than I am now.
Yeah, yes, that'll work fine. But I still think that the extreme exercise, the very high intensity one, will make the mitochondria go where they're trying to go, and they're going to eventually pull on the fats. It's just not as obvious, let's say, as the endurance exercise, which it burns. Your endurance exercise burns more fat over a longer period. But high intensity, it burns up your sugar real fast, so that will ramp up your overall burning of fat too. Gotcha. Which is why bodybuilders can get lean, actually, instead of a powerlifter that may not be lean, for example. And this is based on Dr. Bruce Ames, who developed tests that everybody uses for mutagenicity to see which compounds are bad for you or not, or cause problems that can lead to cancer. He got tired of that and decided to, after he was getting older, think, I'm going to study anti-aging. And then he came up with this acetyl L-carnitine, lipoic acid mixture, and lipoic acid being an antioxidant inside the cell that helps keep the mitochondria from frying themselves, kind of in a way. So that's kind of what mitochondria are all about. You have to, and you're right, what you eat is super important. And if you exercise, you can make more mitochondria because they're still pre-bacteria or whatever you want to call them. They can reproduce themselves. They can make more of them. They can get rid of themselves if you're indolent, if you're not doing anything. So you're exactly right. What you're practicing is, I think, the best way to get your body stimulated to be healthier and be on that top part of the nitric oxide production curve, because even 50% is still good. It's normal.
Yeah.
And if at 80, that's great.
That's what I'm saying. Everyone's just looking for that increase. It doesn't need to be 100%. Just move the needle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's relative, not absolute. And like I said before, if you're in that bottom end of the curve, you bottom out and zero is lights out.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to be like that, but that's what people remember is like, okay, if I don't do this, I die. Yeah, that's a good reason to get somebody to do something.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Luke, any last thoughts on what the over 40 crowd should be concerned about with overall health? We talked about energy, metabolism, mitochondria. Anything else that you see sticking out there that we could all use some help with?
I could go on for hours, but I've learned more recently that the energy metabolism is really the basis of everything. It goes downhill first. You can add all kinds of other things to help this and that. But the only other thing that I've worked on a lot, and just real briefly I want to say, is your joints, your bones and your joints, your cartilage. And again, you got to go back to the anatomy. Cartilage is avascular. Very few mitochondria. It's slow tissue. It's a 2-year half-life, a turnover rate rather. So anything that happens to your cartilage is going to take a long time to fix. So just beware of that. And I still think that the glucosamine plus chondroitin, and we don't have that at Juvenon, by the way, that is a major game changer for your joints. I've been taking that since the 80s. I destroyed one of my meniscuses and had a beautiful valley for a tear, medial, it's tore around the whole meniscus, and did where they take your blood, get the stem cells out of it with your fat and inject it. And
was that the PRP injections?
Yes. Gosh, brain cramp. I need to take more something.
I don't know what it means. I just know PRP.
It's platelet-rich plasma.
Oh, there we go.
Because they have all the growth factors. So using your own body cells makes it easy. So I was at Weider. I did this in a little accident at home and thought, hey, something's wrong. And then I said, I'm just going to go in the gym and do leg presses and see what happens. And it was bad. Knee puffed up. I tore my meniscus stupidly. So you got to watch that. But so taking the glucosamine chondroitin, a year later, I did another MRI because I wanted to prove a point, and it was clean as a whistle. And it feels better than my other knee, actually. But
you think those are the two most powerful? Because in the joint formula complex, man, you see so many different things. Collagen type 2, hydrolyzed bovine collagen, and I mean, it's endless names of stuff. And
well, let me make this real simple. Glucosamine and chondroitin individually and in different countries are drugs for osteoarthritis. And they look at the long view, and you can actually show rebuilding of cartilage even if you're a couch potato. But it takes 2 to 3 years. Why? Because that's the turnover time of these cells. They just are slow. If you don't do a study that lasts 2 years, you don't get the full picture. And they've done it, and here we don't do it, and then they poo-poo on it, and then they give everybody pain pills. So we're measuring pain. So this glucosamine chondroitin doesn't work because it didn't make any difference in the pain. Yeah, but they all took all kinds of acetaminophen, you dummies. They don't tell you that part. So of course, if you're hurt, take this. Okay, fine. So nobody hurt. It didn't improve their pain because it went down just like the placebo. It's not a placebo. You medicated the heck out of them. Come on, give me a break. Okay, I'll stop.
And that's the problem. It's got that 2-year cycle to actually help you, and it's got the studies to prove it. If you don't stop the source of what's causing this destruction, whether you're powerlifting, running ultra marathons, or digging into, you're not stopping this. There's nothing can step up to fix it as fast as you're destroying it. So that's one of my biggest things is, in my workouts, I do a lot more time under tension philosophy where I cut my weights half down to where and do everything slower to mitigate some of that joint tear. So.
Yeah, I realized after being thrown into the gym at Weider from a little pencil neck science dude, the slow weightlifting and slow exercising, that made a big difference. And that made it easier on the joints too. So what you're doing is right. And I would like to give you a plug on that because, I know a lot more about exercise than I ever wanted to. And I thought, wow, I need to be on your show here. So thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, Dr. Luke, just want to thank you for enlightening us and, kind of letting me go down the rabbit hole of stuff I'm interested in that also makes it worth it to me, running this podcast. And I hope my audience got a lot out of it. Tell us more about, how people can get in touch with you or your website, some of the new products coming out. What do you want to put out there?
Hey, I'm the Chief Scientific Officer at Juvenon, and it's juvenon.com is our website. And we have a line of products for people over 40. And what I mentioned about the acetyl L-carnitine and Dr. Bruce Ames, who won the Nobel Prize for his mutagenesis work, he kind of started this whole thing, this whole company, and it's been going on for a while now, I think about 20 years. So I've been on board 2 years now, and we're trying to just reap the benefits of all the newer types of nutrients that we didn't have access to before, and just update and upgrade the line so we can get into helping people age.
Well, we appreciate it. As my audience always knows, I'll put those links in the show notes so they can just click on it and go check you out. And once again, Dr. Luke, I just appreciate your time and what you're doing for us over 40 crowd out there. So my job is to put it out there.
Thanks, because all this knowledge in my head doesn't help anybody if it doesn't get out. So It's like an egg. If you don't crack it, you have to break eggs to make an omelet, right? So we're breaking it. We're making an omelet.
Exactly.